Hello, this is Alex, and I'm joined by Begley, and today we're here to do a brief video about the Pipes plugin. There's been a lot of interest in how to use the plugin. Certainly we like when you use it because it creates less lag on the server versus using hoppers. What does the Pipes plugin do? Well, it allows you to move items from point A to point B by way of glass blocks. The input for sending the items through a glass block is a sticky piston in front of a chest. The output is a regular piston, also pointing to a chest. So when you put objects in the input chest, eventually when a redstone signal is sent to the sticky piston, they are moved inventory slot by inventory slot to the output piston. Some cool things you should know about the plugin. You can send one input to one output, as shown here, but you can also send one input to multiple outputs using the filtering functionality, which I'll show you in a moment. You can also send multiple inputs. So say you have multiple auto farms where you just want everything collected into one chest, so you don't have to go to each individual farm to collect it. That's also possible. And you can also have a many-to-many relationship where you have multiple inputs which feed to multiple outputs. When we talk about filtering, you have the ability to filter the output based on the block name. How do you find out what the block name is? If you press F3 and point to the block in the middle of the screen on the right hand side, you'll see the block name. It will be something like stone bricks or oak log or oak planks. You'll note that usually when it's two words, there's an underscore that separates the two. Make sure you also include the underscore in the naming. When you set up a filter, you basically attach a sign to the side of the output piston, and you leave the first line blank. On the second line, you put in square brackets the word pipe. On the third line, you enter the name of the block. It is possible to filter for more than one block in the same chest. You just separate each of the block names with a comma. No spaces between the words and the commas. It's just the block name, comma, block name. Just note that on the third line, there's a character limit. You can only put so many characters. I think the most I've ever squeezed is 14 characters onto a line. So if the block names are really long, you're not going to be very successful to send more than one block to one chest. Once you've done the filtering, I guess what you should know is if you have multiple outputs with multiple filters, the Pipes plugin tries to send the blocks in sequential order from closest output chest or output piston to the furthest output piston. Don't put an unsigned piston in between two chests which are filtered, because it confuses the Pipes plugin and it either then puts everything into the unnamed, unsigned output piston, or at least it goes in sequence, and then where there is a filter which is applicable for the item that's going through, it puts it in, but when it reaches the unsigned piston, it just puts everything else in there, and it won't respect anything that you filtered beyond that. So it has to be the last one, the furthest away from the inputs. I think the other thing that's worthwhile to know is, I mentioned earlier, you need to send a redstone signal to the input sticky piston. You can do this in a lot of different ways. Begley and I will demonstrate a few different ways in which you can do it. One is using the lever method. The lever method is manual. So you put things into the input chest, and once everything that you want to transport is in there, you can flip the lever. Every time you flip the lever, one inventory slot will be sent across. So if you have 32 items or 64 items of the same item in one inventory slot, the whole slot will go. So all 64 items will go. But if you have like one stone, one log, one plank, one fence, it's 4 different inventory slots, so you'll have to hit the lever 4 times. That's a manual approach. There's another manual approach using pressure pads. If you put a pressure pad next to the input sticky piston and step on the pad that also works to create a redstone signal, one inventory slot. There are two ways which are a little bit more automated that you can use where no human intervention is required. One is the comparator method, which is probably the most server friendly. It basically checks if there's anything in the chest. If there's anything in the chest, the comparator lights up. The comparator output is amplified by a repeater, and then the repeater sends a redstone signal to the piston. I guess one thing to know about the comparator, it does not always work so amazingly, because if, for instance, your pipes are full, the output chests are full, the moment you have more than one slot of inventory in the input chest, the comparator method ceases to work properly. This is really good when you have a hopper system that feeds into this input chest, and then from there, basically, it feeds one item at a time, and that item then triggers the comparator. A more reliable but probably less server-friendly solution would be the double observer method, where you basically have two observers looking into each other, which causes a back and forth redstone signal. Obviously, the back end of one of the observers is up against the sticky piston, and so there's basically a constant single tick redstone pulse being generated. So whatever you put in the chest, however you do it, it will basically just constantly send a signal across to empty the chest. So in the case of the comparator example I gave you, where the chest is full and can't deliver anymore, no problem. When you eventually empty the output chests, the observers then will trigger the subsequent delivery or transport of the blocks. So I hope that was useful. Good luck with the pipes plugin. Wish you a good day. Bye-bye.